Brandon Nimmo is staying in the Big Apple, and he gets a big deal thanks to his new agent, Scott Boras. 8 years, $162 million, breaks down to more than $20 million per year. And you might be thinking, Brandon Nimmo is going to get more than $20 million per year? Well, if you hadn't noticed, that's the going rate right now. Brandon Nimmo, an above-average center fielder who gets on base. That's worth the money to Major League evaluators. Well, at least to the Mets, and his agent got him a payday, and now he stays with the team that drafted him. Brandon Nimmo, back in the Big Apple, 8 years, $162 million. Get some instant analysis. Welcome in former Marlins president and the host of Nothing Personal, David Samson. David, Brandon Nimmo, 8 years, 162. Your reactions, what?
Scott Boras does his job again. He went right to Steve Cohen, and he knows that Steve Cohen said that they'd win a World Series in 3 to 5 years. Well, they're about to start year 3. And they figured we might as well sign everybody. There's a Steve Cohen tax in Major League Baseball, which Major League Baseball assumed no team would hit. Guess what? Steve Cohen has not just hit it, he's surpassed it. He's crushed it. You can't even see it in the rearview mirror. And the second thing I would tell you we need to talk about is age. No longer does it matter that players are signed till they're 38, 39 years old. It's not rare anymore. It's happening with every one of these deals. And we're going to have a major wait to see when these players get older.
All right, so when you take a look at this deal for Brandon Nimmo, 8 years, 162, he's going to get over $20 million per year. Is this the going rate? Is this a deal that you would do? Or is this is just sort of the new era of baseball that we're going to give guys like Brandon Nimmo this kind of money?
Listen, you have to take your hat off to Steve Cohen. There's a bunch of tax reasons why he's able to lose money operationally, and he is losing money operationally, but he gets to depreciate all the assets that he bought from the Wilpons, and that's about a 5-year window. So it's not a coincidence that he's spending all this money and willing to take on losses for this number of years. This is the window for the Mets. And he looked at the Philadelphia Phillies. He then looked at his phone. And then Scott Boras was on the phone, and Scott said, Steve, you can't let Philly run away with this. You know they're going to catch you. And that plays right to the insecurities of someone like Steve Cohen. This was not a Billy Epler deal. This was a Steve Cohen, Scott Boras deal.
All right, as for the player, Brandon Nimmo himself, do you like the player in terms of staying in New York with the Mets?
Listen, he's probably a top 5 to top 7 center fielder in Major League Baseball. There's no question about it. If you look at what he does, we love up the middle, right? You look at, they have Lindor. You go straight up the middle with speed. You go up with on-base percentage. And look what he does. You know, first in on-base percentage for center fielders, that matters. But it only matters if you have people who can drive him in, and that's the importance of Pete Alonso. And when you saw last year that the Mets were unable to score and the Braves ended up catching them, that was a major issue, in addition to keeping pitchers healthy. So not only do they need Scherzer and Verlander to be healthy as almost octogenarians, but now they need the same guys who they're bringing back in Edwin Diaz and Nimmo to perform not just at their level from last year, but that level or even better. And when you're counting on that, there's no question there's risk involved.
I like the continuity here. I think that's important because this is your leadoff hitter, one of the leaders in the clubhouse, a guy that all the fans love. And I know that doesn't necessarily factor into re-signing a player in terms of your perspective, but the fans love Brandon Nimmo. He's one of their homegrown guys. He stays at the top of the lineup and is able to have some continuity there for Buck Showalter and the rest of his lineup. In terms of what else the Mets have done, also on this night, agreeing to a 1-year deal with veteran reliever David Robertson. What do you think of this move?
Well, listen, you know whatever bullpen you put together, and Steve Cohen doesn't know this yet because he's new to the game. But the fact of the matter is that you need a bullpen in April that will be different than your bullpen in October. Bringing David Robertson in his depth, he's a 7th, 8th inning guy, and that's the going rate now for late middle relief with occasional high leverage. I think it's a good signing. 1 year is all he would ever get in the market.
All right, so you take a look back at what the Mets have done this offseason. They let Jacob deGrom walk. They signed Justin Verlander, signed Jose Quintana, traded for Brooks Raley, who I think it's an under the radar signing. He's a good reliever, was a good reliever for the Rays. They get here Brandon Nimmo to stay in the Big Apple. They get David Robertson. What's next for the Amazons?
Well, I love the Quintana signing, right? He was a great pickup at the deadline last year for the Cardinals. You saw how he did. He's a perfect middle to back end of the rotation guy. and that's about the going rate. But I still think you're going to have to go through about 10 or 11 starting pitchers during the course of a season, maybe even more if you're the Mets because of the age of Scherzer and Verlander. That said, when you look at the odds to win a World Series, the Mets have to be seen as winning this offseason. It sounds crazy with all of the contracts that have happened, but when you look at what they've done over the last year, last 2 years, they're putting themselves in the best position possible, but it's December. And as you know, because we spend a month together, none of it matters until October.
So does this deal, the Brandon Nimmo deal, does this take the Mets out of the running for the Japanese pitcher Kodai Senga?
So I think we'd be silly to say they're out of the running for anybody. We've already seen that Steve Cohen is willing to go over the Steve Cohen tax. What is he, over by 30 or 40 million now? He is going to have the highest payroll in baseball by far, so he's not going to say no to anybody. So I would say they are not out of the running, and that would be actually a good signing. If you're a Mets fan, you got to love this. He's spending money hand over fist, but you got to see the results, and we're going to find out in just over 2 months when spring training opens.
As a baseball fan and a broadcaster, and you know of all the Mets fans that are here at CBS Sports HQ, I wouldn't mind seeing him get another bat at least before the offseason's over. I think that's their kind of their last thing. If they don't get Senga, at least get another bat. Like, that's kind of the last hope here, you'd think.
Remember, when you sign your own guys back, it feels good because you're getting Diaz back, you're getting Nimmo back, but that's not making you better. Like the Yankees getting Judge back, you're just keeping your players. So the question is, where are you getting more wins? Where are you getting clutch hits late in the season? Where are you getting high leverage innings in your bullpen and at your starting rotation? And that's the pieces of the puzzle that front offices are trying to put together here during the offseason.
Well, they had 101 wins during the regular season, but not enough in the postseason, knocked out in the first round. They want to get that taste out of their mouth and advance to the World Series, which is where a lot of people think they should be. Should have been last season and certainly should be this season. David, appreciate the perspective here on CBS Sports HQ as the Mets re-signed Brandon Nimmo, 8 years, $162 million. And as you take a look here at the Mets in terms of their odds to win the World Series, fifth best on the board at plus 1,000. And when you spend the money that Steve Cohen is spending, you'd expect to have these kind of odds. You'd expect to be among the favorites to win a World Series when you have the roster that he's constructed. Now, you just got to see if it all works out in terms of the guys that they've added: Justin Verlander, Jose Quintana, Brooks Raley. They keep Brandon Nimmo, David Robertson adding to the back end of the bullpen. You hope it adds up to another good regular season and a deeper run in the postseason.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.